Hey everybody, what's happening? I'm Tommy and you are on the Love Boat. It's going to feel like the lifeboat though. This is a flashback to things that I used to do an awful long time ago. We used to have people on. Ed from Mass, good to see you. Barbara, how are you? Monk, Ashley, honey, good to see you. Jane Aldrich, glad that you are here. Meesal Smokes, what's happening? Yeah. Heather, how are you? I won't get that name right. I just won't. I'm not a bright man. Carolina, Canada, glad that you are here. We saw Smokes. We got the whole crew. This is killer. We're off to a really good start. I like it. Hey, Ashley, good to see you. Is that Deadhead? They let you out. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's a good thing always. So today, folks, we're gonna have somebody on the channel that this is the sort of the roots of this channel. This gentleman has got me excited, and I've told stories about him in the past. Jamie Palmer, good to see you. Lilac Lime, how are ya? The Aldrich sisters, Jane and Barbara, good to see you. So, Linda Burton, how are you? This is a guy that I have hopes in a very big way, and I've told stories about him in the past. I told the story, and I don't know whether all of you got it, but there was a day that I was ready to cash this crap in. It was back after the video that sort of ruined things around here for a hot minute. But when that was going on, getting up every day and continuing to do this while you're getting, death threats and hate is always a little bit more difficult to do. And there was a comment left by this guy, and I won't read it, but this has happened to me 2 or 3 times. Tommy Bird did it once, but it was just somebody that said, you know what, if the boat wasn't here, I'd still be using dope. And the particular kind of dope that he uses is the same kind that I do. So I know we're going to give him a Love Boat welcome, but I'll let the rest of it come out while we do this. People, this is Will Elias. You've probably seen the name as Sinstar. You see that down there? It's a clothing line he's got. Hey, Will, what's happening, my brother?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. You're so complimentary in how you always introduce your guests. Thank you.
You know what? This time I'm not even BSing. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, you gotta lay it on kind of thick. But this, you happen to be someone that has me excited, and I'll tell you why. I was going to tell everybody. That's when I just sort of paused there, but I may as well tell you at the same time, and we'll bring you in. It's difficult to continue to do the kind of content that I did in the beginning, especially because the longer you do what we do, the more that your voice kind of gets developed, and there's a need for what I used to do, but I'm no longer the guy that can do it. And seeing some of the stuff that you were doing, so I will introduce you to the group here, and I will do it in a way that everybody will understand here pretty quickly. But Will's a convict. He's also a junkie who's in recovery. So he and I have an awful lot in common. He's just a younger, kind of a younger version of me, and fortunately, he's also articulate. So he has a voice, and I think it's one that currently is kind of important. So I'm going to start this off probably a little bit backwards than how you guys are normally used to. Normally what I would say is, why don't you talk me through the early days of you doing dope? But to be really honest, I'm going to skip that because I know your story, and it's going to take 4 of these things to do. And since I do keep them at about an hour because it tends to keep more people here pleased when I do that, the audience is kind of called for the 1 hour show. So what I would like to do is currently sort of highlight some of the things that I think make you more exciting than some of the people that I'm watching currently. And I will start with this. My drug of choice was heroin. If I was your age, my drug of choice would be fentanyl. Now, it's a very different world that we live in right now. And I said to people on shows that I've done in the past, a day is coming where we're going to look back at the good old days when people were doing heroin. And people thought I was absolutely insane. But you started on heroin, correct?
Well, like anyone, nobody started on heroin.
Right, yeah.
Pills, so obviously. To give you a little warm up of my history, I was a hardworking kid. The second I was able to get a job, I got a job. So I was working at the mall, and I ended up having my appendix rupture at work. I managed to push through work, and I ended up going home. My mother, the loving person and inspiration that she is in my life still to this day, takes me to the hospital. My appendix burst actually in the middle of treatment. I was probably dosed more than anybody could probably honestly handle. It was a ridiculous amount, how much pain and enough medication that they gave me at that time. It was almost criminal. I made it through the surgery and I got out, and I was kicked out with, an addiction. This was 2002 is when this started. Now I carried
So
that.
this was at the height. I mean, in 2002, you could, I mean, the way
I
they were
was I
handing out.
was in it, and I also, I can't blame it on all of the doctors. Some of them did really try. I also was, I guess, graced enough to go in not looking like an addict at first. So I
Yeah.
was able to kind of play into things. I kind of used some of my acting ability that I thought I had at the time. And, I went down the road that was, of course, I was smart enough to know that this road is not going to be taking me anywhere good. But at the same time, when I was, though, on it, I found a sense of confidence and the ability to do things that I just couldn't do as my normal self. Now, I started smoking weed at about 14. That was, and I was smoking cigarettes at a young age too, at about 12, 13 as well. And it, with trials and tribulations with life, it just kind of, helped me cope until it just wasn't coping and I was just maintaining. It started probably getting unraveled at about 22, 23.
So let me ask you something. What did they send you home with? Did they start you out with perks? What did they send you
They
home
gave
with?
me Percocet 10 milligrams and they gave me 30 of them. They did
Okay.
not. I was a minor at the time. They didn't explain, of course, to my mom, like, hey, these are something that you should probably monitor. My parents were really good parents, but they were parents that felt they didn't need to police me. They felt
Right.
that I was, I was they thought I had a handle on things, and as far as that, they couldn't have known what was coming. It was something I look back and I wish I could never have put them through that. And still what keeps me going to this day is just trying to be that son that my mom deserves. My father was an alcoholic. He's blind as well. Me and him do smoke together. We in the past and whatnot. He has glaucoma, so we were able to kind of bond that way. So it was always kind of in my younger days, I was moving from house really to house, from divorced parents to also, I had a lot of friends. I went to 2 different high schools, graduated on my third one. So I went to 3 high schools. I was somewhat of a popular guy that could network around, and I never really had a shortage of really anything necessarily that I wanted. I could, relatively living in Phoenix, I grew up in Tempe, in Chandler as well, in Arizona. And just kind of being in that border state, it was very
Yeah.
accessible, especially in those early
Sure.
2000s. Some of your early stuff that you talk about, I can always just, it's like hearing my story, but through a different lens,
Yeah.
and I have to say, like, I'm sure this is like this with a lot of people that found the lifeboat as, the lifeboat's there when you don't have a meeting to go to, or you don't have somebody to pick up the phone and call at 3, 4, 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what it is about ex and current opiate addicts. It seems like the witching hour of 3 to 5 is always like this time where you kind of need somebody, but that's not ideal times of people really picking up the phone. So I, so we're now at about 22. You guys could see kind of how it is. A lot of dreams that kind of dropped off through that time. I was always fighting to make something of myself, though. I wanted to get into the military, but unfortunately, with my background and so much, I was so close to the gate to sign my contract. That could be a story for another time. It led to an incarceration. And by the recruiting standard, he was like, dude, we've done so much for you at this point. There's nothing we can do with you.
Right.
So I had to kind of put that to the side, and I went into college. My first attempt at college was futile. It didn't work out. I, was lumped with a bunch of money from the loans and ran wild with $3,000,
Sure.
big $3,000, but to somebody like me, that was great. But it was like a life of disaster after disaster. Like, I got hit by a truck on my 24th birthday. Like, it was just like,
More free pain pills.
Huh?
I said more free pain pills.
That was always just like I guess this one is an easy one to get. Like, you didn't really have to come up with a story on that one.
Yep.
But
that was a frightening time for those people that aren't aware. This was a really frightening time in America because we, at that point, the Sackler family was pushing OxyContin onto the street at a rate that was breathtakingly out of control. And a lot of people were starting to catch habits on this because their literature said there was a 4% chance of you getting addicted. And if you've ever done a Percocet 30, or if you've ever, which is just a small OxyContin, hold on one second. Oh, apparently one of our mods was trying to get in, but their app keeps crashing. That kind of stuff happens. But this was a scary time. And it's funny that you mentioned that, not funny, haha, but that you mentioned that you were in Phoenix. When I worked as a public speaker, I would go around the country, and it was basically the cheapest dope. Every time we were in Phoenix, I would load up for the next show because it was just so much cheaper to buy stuff there. That border, its proximity to the border, I don't think people realize just how bad it was, especially when a lot of these people that were getting addicted to OxyContin, if you weren't going to pill mills, they were kicking you out after a period of time. You take home 4 prescriptions for this, and then they kick you to the street.
Yeah, the doctor's license can't really, carry for it. So it just kind of, you have to end up moving on. I wasn't able to really go that route. I didn't have necessarily the long-term paperwork to do that. So I kind of had to really figure stuff out, like what am I going to do? Because like, I never was a guy. I never really had either the desire to deal either. I always saw the other side of it. And by just the risk was not worth the reward, just for me. I mean, for other people, I know they could speak on it differently, but for me, it just wasn't worth it. What I wanted to do was just be able to maintain a life without being in pain and being able to, work a job that's ultimately, I'm a blue collar guy at the end of the day. I've worked in restaurants, construction, but I've also done the phone room racket. I've done everything possible without you having to have a college degree for. Right. You can, go ahead.
Yeah, these are junkie jobs, and I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No,
but I mean,
I get it.
If you're a guy that does dope and you're trying to maintain, these are usually the kind of things you go into. As far as the dope dealing, did you also? For me, one of the reasons that I didn't get into ever heavily selling the opioids is because I hated the people that sold them to me. I felt like they were the ultimate parasites on planet Earth. Was there any of that, or at that point, did you still think they were saviors?
No, well, I mean, it was a give or take. You got the blind. I buried some of, like, I've been in this so long. I buried like 2 dealers, and seen them from their start to literally their end and dropping rocks on their casket. Like, I've seen it from the start and end. But no, there's a sense of arrogancy that kind of picks up. There's a sense of kind of God complex I never liked with people having with that, because they know what 10 minutes is, and then when 15 to 30 minutes go by and they're still not there, and an hour later they show up,
5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 more minutes, 5 more
I'm
minutes.
at the light.
I never I never got to let's say a driver, without getting politically insulted.
Right.
A driver with the nice like hours and meet, at different food cities at that time. Like, I was always friends with that guy, and that was even more of a nightmare. When I say friend, I use that very loosely. I have,
Absolutely.
Different view of friends nowadays. I actually really don't have, I'm now in my 40s, just recently single, but very happy about that. The relationship that I was in, she was a good woman, and I don't have anything bad to say about her, but our lives are very conflicting, and we're just in different places in our life. I want to build this clothing line. I need to help my mom out with a move that she's selling, property that we got out here. And it's just time for me to focus on family and myself, and, try to just stick with the things that are working for me to get me to where I want to go and be a positive guy. What I've loved about you so much, Tommy, is you've helped me find a voice. I want to tell people, have realistic expectations when you go into 12-step meetings. You know, it is a great tool for you to use and I guess have in your toolbox, but it's not going to be your savior. It will not be there, I think, when you need it the most. And I think it's best to use as a maintaining coping mechanism. And maybe then once you're at a period of helping others and showing them maybe that beginning path of getting out, because that's always the hard part of it all. Once you got about a month, 2 months, and then you hit 3, you're off and moving, and you can really see dramatically how your life will change for the better. You know, people will see you walking differently. People will see you talking differently, dressing differently. Just more opportunities will come. You know, with me and how I'm kind of frustrated with the whole thing is I really got my foot dug in a hole with my background because I hit the whole 3. I hit the narcotics, identity theft, and assaults. So not only to jobs do I use, but I have now to you a temper problem, and you know, I may do shady shit in your business, like, and that's not me today. But now that everything's so digital, I used to in the early 2000s be able to, because I was that guy that was always turning in applications one door to the next, and I was on my feet trying to make a good living and trying to make, you know, just something of myself. And if I could make something of myself at that point, maybe I can then break out of this life that I'm living. But if I can't, at that time in my early 20s, thinking, well, if I don't, then I don't think I really want to see what life is after that. You know,
I think you bring up a good point too. You know, it's 2025, and I've never badmouthed 12-step programs. I really haven't. I think I've said many times we stand on the backs of giants, right? The people that came up with that saved, you know, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of lives, because the medical community didn't believe that addicts could ever get clean. That was literally what they taught doctors was, you know, you've heard me say it, but keep them away from guns, keep them away from cars, and they're just going to drink themselves to death or snort themselves to death or whatever the addiction is. But 12-step programs worked at that time for a reason that makes it a lot more difficult today with, you know, all the people that are court ordered to be in there. Every time I went to an NA meeting, half of the room was holding, right? These guys had dope. And as an addict, if you look at a guy and he's got dope in his pocket, I promise you know. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. And God forbid you're a woman. You know, if you're a woman and you go to these programs, it becomes a meat market that you didn't want to go to. Every guy in there hits on you. I've heard so many horror stories. But so, this format works, you know.
If I could share something with you, I ran into a really big problem with that. So I get out of prison. I'm only out 11 days. I end up going back to county on another drug charge. I ended up catching, by the grace of God, some luck and not going back to prison. And I was actually saved by an outreach program. The place that got me out was a place called Unhooked. Unhooked pulled me out. God love this BHT. When she showed up, she had to pick up other people, but I was maxed out at that time. When we get
what is BHT?
Behavioral health tech.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
She had to go to the different jails, and at the time I was max. So I remember when she pulled me out, I remember my first words to her was just like, "Are you the angel that's coming to save me?" And she was like, "I am." She was this Black woman. Oh, I loved her, named Lisa. And she got me out, and I got out within just under 60 days. I got out in 59 days. I got into a sober living. It was called the Vaughn House. It was really nice. It was in Gilbert. It only had 8 guys. I was there for a while. Like, I was there for a minute. I kind of got nestled in, and probably close to about a year being there, I started managing the house.
Oh boy.
Well, when I started networking, I started giving a lot of my phone numbers out to help, like, people, if, you know, because there's always stipulations. If you get people in the house, you can get your rent cheaper, or you can, you know,
sure.
This, that. And at the same time, this is a good place. Like, I can really help you. You know, right. You're not going to be going into TLC. You're not going to go into the Salvation Army. You know what I mean? Like, it's a nice place. And, yeah, I would get phone calls from women And it was so hard because I would try to find them different locations and I just couldn't. God forbid if they had children, and God forbid if they had like a significant other, and then you had to find 2 to 3. There just wasn't many options for women. And if I was a woman, I wouldn't want to go to these co-eds. Like,
No.
I really hope that there's something that can change with that, because it seems like that kind of issue is everywhere.
Well, I think these kind of platforms, I think virtual meetings, no one in a virtual meeting is going to get you high. No one in a virtual meeting is going to come up and do the, hey, you come around here often kind of thing. It's really
That's
it's
good.
it's sort of the, it's kind of the evolution of the support group, right? Hold on one second. Will, I feel everything you said. I've had 27 major surgeries and was always released as a junkie. They even used fentanyl on me. Thank God. Tommy, glad to see you. Glad that you are here. It's ugly, right? It really is. Very often, unfortunately, the medical community has been doing
that.
Yeah, the medical community has done an awful lot of harm in the name of helping. And we talk about knee-jerk stuff here all the time, but there was a policy right around the time that our friend Will was really sort of getting into this life, where it was believed that every human being had the right to live without pain. Like, this was being written into like clinics and hospitals. So they came up with that chart of
This
0,
narrative.
no pain, right, all the way up to the 10.
You're always going to say a 10 or a 15. Never did I go in there and be like, well, I'm going to get a 6 and expect anything good to come out of it. You know what I mean? Like, and you could see the looks on the faces of the nurses and everything else. It was just, God.
Maybe it's because I was such a junkie, but my thing was always, I would say to him, I'm right around the 7 or an 8. But I literally never said a 10. And for me, it was just that, I knew if I said 10, they weren't going to believe me.
Oh, no, I played it up. I was like, I'm at a 20. I definitely
got them to hand it to I went the other route and got into a pain management facility. I had a really great jacket. Like, I had broken everything, from skiing. I had a lot of injuries, a neck break, back break. I had 32 arthroscopic surgeries. So I just got into a pain management clinic, but I got in at the same time as you did. And they, you've heard me talk about it. They gave me 12 to 13 OxyContin 80s a day was my script, which is just ridiculous, man. They should go to hell for writing that prescription.
So between, of course, these times, like, and this is before that rehab story I just told, I ended up my first time in detox on a wing and a prayer, right? And, I know I probably got there in and out through there, probably a blurry times of about 3 to 4. But my first one is the one that I always remember. And I've always wanted to be this guy. You're sitting in this like circle with tables and chairs, plastic. You're with, in detox, girls and guys. And you'll have people come in on the outside and they'll bring, I remember these guys, this guy came in, with nice car keys, just dressed nice. He had like a carton of cigarettes, candy, soda, and he was handing it out to people. And I remember I was like, I'm not supposed to be sitting in this chair right now. This is not where I'm supposed to be, and I always was like, how am I here, but not like being the nurse to help these people? Like, I've always had a heart for that. I've always wanted to just help people. If anyone ever asked me what do you want to become when you grow up? Like, kindergarten Will wanted to be a judge, which I've always thought that was kind of weird. But then I always wanted to just be like a guy that was in chaos, but doing it for the name of good. And I always just fell short. I never seemed to have gotten there. I wish I lived in a different time. I wish I lived in I wish I was me in like the 80s right now, or the 70s.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. You're born perfect for the time you're in. I mean, in all honesty, because here's the problem. The way that I see it is that the kind of stuff that I did when I started this channel is absolutely dying. Most of the stuff that you see on YouTube today, whether they're talking about true crime, whether they're talking about anything, these are AI generated videos. And if you've never played with it, you can generate, Tommy Bird, good to see you. You can generate an AI video in 6 seconds. It'll put the entire thing together. You can speak in, it'll take your voice and it'll put your voice to it. And people are already tired of it. what people need is connection. And I know that I flogged this to beat the band, but and I will tell everybody, because I catch this a lot. People say, you gave up on having a 5. I gave up on working with large groups of people because it didn't work out in my life, right? It was a very bad thing. But right now, Will is absolutely what I would call one of my 5. Like, Will and I talk on a very regular basis. And when he started talking about having a heart to do this kind of thing and starting something very similar to what I was doing in the beginning, which looks a lot like an NA meeting. It really does, without all of the BS. People come together and start talking about having a bad day or what they're going through. And to be really honest, if you spend, the amount of time that you have spent in these programs, osmosis alone starts to really take hold. And some of the best people that I've ever met in rehabilitation were, what's the term they use? Autodidactic. These people taught themselves. And people say to me all the time, hey, I watched every one of your videos. And usually they've been here 3 weeks. You hover over the name and you can see how long they've been a subscriber. And you go, wow, it's pretty impressive in 3 weeks. It's like 3,000 of them. Will has actually watched every single video on the Lifeboat, which is kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did you see on my end? You probably seen
kind
him
of,
like, my God,
yeah, you've been here a long
go
time.
to sleep? Like,
Yeah, you've been here a long time, and here's the thing. One of the reasons that Will is in my 5 is because, with all due respect to Will, didn't have any desire to be in that position. I kind of reached out to him, and that's also a rarity on YouTube. But the comments that he left just reminded me a lot of a much younger version of me. And the stuff that you have gone through is so similar to me. And I'll tell you something, Will, that blew me away, because I know we'll bring this out. We may even bring it out tonight. But so Will's been to prison. And when I asked him about it, when 2 guys have done time, right? When 2 guys have both been to prison, the conversations tend to be bullshit. I'm sorry, it's kind of how it works. And you say, hey, tell me about your time in prison. And they tell you about the 19 people they stabbed, and they tell you about
whose nightmare is worse, right?
Right, exactly. And you find out afterwards that they're at a camp. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even have fences around the place. And when I started talking to Will about his experiences in prison, hello, Lisa Trimble, there was an honesty that came out in it that you just don't hear. And I'll be really honest. I think that going forward, Deadhead says prison is not easy, man. It really isn't. But going forward, I think that authenticity and that connection is what's going to save people's lives. And I'm terrified that there aren't voices coming out anymore to do this kind of work, because it's a labor of love,
That's funny that you mentioned that too, because when I was in prison, there was not so much actually in prison, but county, when there would be volunteers that would come in and talk. I wanted to do that. Because I wanted to if you can bring in hope to the darkest place, because that's one thing that I learned that you can't ever lose, or something that can't be taken away from you. I have been in the darkest detention centers that Arizona State could possibly do on a state facility that been in. But the one thing that they were never able to take away from me was hope. It could always be there, no matter in the darkest times. You can always at least have it. It may not come tomorrow or whenever, it may never come, but at least if you have it, it's something. It feels tangible. You feel like still kind of a person. I know when I was in prison, I felt then that I was now became a ghost, and I am now witnessing this world go without me. I'm not even on the sidelines. I'm not even just kind of being that mediocre, just average guy. And you even crave for that life. And what's kind of scary to me now is, since I've been out of prison for we're almost coming to the 10-year mark.
Nice.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Yeah. About 8. Yeah. About 8. And, that memory is starting to fade. It is, and it isn't. The little things will never go away. It's like people that go to like war, or come back from traumatic situations, like women with really bad marriages, or what have you, traumatic experiences. When you come back to that, like, there's just some things that will never leave you. I'll always kind of hear the jangling of keys, door popping is always kind of a thing. Like, it just never really, a random scream out of nowhere. Like, it's just some things, man, they just don't really fit. Now, I was a guy, I made prison a little hard for me than I needed to. I think I kind of easily had some envy on me a little bit that wasn't ever pushed. It just kind of was on, with just kind of having love on the streets. And just, I mean, you can get a guy that, you get mail sent into you. People get jealous of that.
Absolute fact. If you go to mail call every single night, everybody hates you.
Yeah. I mean, even, that, and I can just think I had very loving family that was, always just sending supportive things to me to keep me remembering the person who I was. I refused to let the humanity within me die in prison. Now, I'm not a person that served a lot of time. I was a person that I did it on, what did you call it? The installment plan.
Yeah, the installment plan.
Yeah, I'm going 6 months, I'm out. I'm going a year, I'm back. I'm going a couple days, I'm out. I'm going a week. Now, if you bundled it all together, then right. I mean, we're looking at probably about 6 years if you bundled it all.
And for people that don't understand, the installment plan, not for nothing, honestly, is so much worse. When you go into a prison and they say to you, you're doing a decade, right? You can go in and start putting lines on a wall. But when you realize as you're walking out the door that you're probably coming right back in, well, just real quickly, because this was a part of one of the reasons that
sure.
Some of the early respect that I had for you. Deadhead says, Will, if you had the option to rescue and care for an animal in need, would that have helped? You have a great dog that is a very big part of your life. Why don't you tell everybody about that? Because this is a community that digs animals.
My goodness. Let's not skip over this story that I wanted to start with my opening. I was born in December in 84. I was born in Austin, Texas. And there's a story that I need to kind of let you guys know to help shape who I am and my love for animals. So this was a baby, and this was a story that my mother, told me several times. But my dad was at work. He was a blue collar guy, and he was at work at the time, and a man came and banged on my door. My mom opens the door, and this man tells a story that the landlord has sent me over here to check the power of the water or something. Now, my mom is not, she's not the most hesitant person, but she's not the most trusting person either. She was really hesitant. She says for that moment, she saw a look in this man's face where he was about to react. Now, my dog that I had was a golden retriever. His name was JD. Just went ballistic, just enough for the man to jump back and my mom to slam the door in his face, lock it. Calls my dad. Dad comes home. Nothing ever happens. Well, the next day they ask the landlord, hey, did you send anybody over to our house? Landlord says, no, I didn't send anybody over. Mom's like, we're moving. We moved to Flagstaff, Arizona. My grandparents on my dad's side, God love them, was racing Siberian Huskies at the time. So they would put me on the dog sled and they would race them. And then they moved to Tempe with about 9 Siberian Huskies. In Arizona, we average between 95 degrees and 115 on any given day, even in the winter. Thank you, Deadhead, for that. And so I love animals. They have been what have saved me. I remember when I got out, the first little creature I met when I got out of county from Unhooked and going into my sober living that I later managed, I was greeted by a cat. And I remember we named the cat Molly, actually, surprisingly enough. Weird name to call a cat out of rehab. But yeah. But I remember, that was just like having that minute with an animal again. I forgot that feeling. So yeah, I've always had, animals have been always there when nobody else was. I'm an only child, so I also have insomnia very badly that I've dealt with ever since I was a child. Like ever since I was a baby, you can ask my mom. Like I just have had trouble sleeping, hence also why I lean towards opiates as well.
Yeah.
And it helped because, my mind, the best way I can describe it is if you put your car in neutral and if you slam on the gas, that's how my mind feels like it's going all the time. And when I would finally take those opiates, it would get me to balance out. I've done a lot of things to battle this and fight my recovery. And every day, I no longer really look at it as a war, because I think I've maintained the campaign very well up to this point. And the thanks to with the lifeboat and the boat is, it's been a tool, and the strongest tool that I've had in my arsenal. Like restaurant work was, I could kind of sustain that work for so long because I was able to put headphones on and just listen to your stuff. Like it
Appreciate
just,
that.
yeah, thank you again. I honestly, I can't thank you enough. I know you say you're terrible at accepting
I'm getting better at it. I promise you, I'm getting better at it.
but these ones, you deserve, and everybody on this lifeboat, they deserve, because they played a little part too. They've always, when I've said some things in the comments or something that I've been struggling with, there'll at least be one person that will say something and helps. I think his name was Brock. I think I remember.
Yeah. Brock Bandy would be a pretty solid bet. That's not a bad bet right off the bat. Yeah.
We were talking about memory. Memory problems. So I'm surprised I remember that. But yeah.
Yeah. We'll play. So you were talking about frequent flyer miles. So not to bring up uncomfortable memories, but this is kind of important so that people get an idea of what we're talking about. What was your fastest turnaround time, man? And look, before you're embarrassed, my fastest turnaround time was 3 days. So I was out, didn't make it 72 hours, and I was back in. So I've been there.
Mine was 11.
Quickest?
Mine was 11 days.
11 days? Yeah, that's ugly. That's
ugly. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, and the hopelessness that you feel when you get arrested. Can you walk us through the first time you walked into prison? Did you feel like you shouldn't be there? I remember thinking to myself, everybody in here is a loser but me, and that I think probably kept me in the game a lot longer. Once I started to realize that every single person in there was exactly like me, my life changed, but it took a couple of prison rips to get there. Talk to me about the first time they gave you a bedroll and you had to walk into a unit.
Okay, well, I think it's a place where some people for me, I can only speak on me, that my mind goes to a place of kind of like autopilot. So during that time, I'm hyper focused on what's around me, but I'm not really focusing on what's like close to me, if that, I don't know, makes sense. So when I walk in, I know eyes are on me, but I am not making eye contact with them. But I know not to do it in a disrespectful way. I was kind of introduced to it because I went to juvenile the first time I went. Yeah, I went to, they call it Southeast Facilities in Arizona.
I know exactly what it is. Yeah.
To juvenile. So I kind of was, it's really weird because I can look back and being 14 push-ups in a cell by myself and thinking to myself, is this the road you're going down? Like, is this like, do you find this fucking cool? Like, and I would be saying this to myself in the head and I'd be like, no, but it was like this course was laid out for me. No matter what I did, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But I got to say, where I'm supposed to be right now is I'm happy right now that I'm here on the lifeboat. I'm happy that I'm here with you guys, and you guys are just listening to my story, because tomorrow's not promised to us. Tomorrow I can leave, and on my way to finding a job or interviewing, like, I could be gone. But you guys could at least have seen my story and have known, like, I was a person out there that did love his family, love his friends, love animals. I always wanted, I love quotes and literature. I love designing. I've always loved like symbolism. And I always paid attention to that kind of stuff. And that's just kind of the person that I am. And I'm glad you guys can see it.
And you know what? And this is, this couldn't be more important. It really couldn't. Because some of the things that you're bringing up now, this, for everyone who's listening, if you've ever had a drug problem, these thoughts that feel like they're so unique to us are so not. Like, after doing this for 4 years, the biggest shocker for me, after talking to literally thousands of people that were trying to get sober, a lot of them off of dope, was that all of the same things that we run through our head, these are experiences that everyone has. Like, I was born in the wrong time. I wish I had done this. there's a moment of freedom when you say every single stupid freaking thing that I did on planet Earth has landed me exactly where I'm at today, and this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That moment is like the skies open up and the sun comes out. For people that don't know the history between you and me, I was talking to Will one morning early, and I was standing on my balcony and I was listening to him, and he would say something. I'd go, I knew the answer to that. And I would ask him a question and he'd answer it. And I'd say, I knew the answer to that, because there are archetypes almost. And the people that get addicted to opioids, the fact that you're into reading, the fact that you're into there's usually a couple of categories. And one happens to be, back in the day, they would call them the William Burroughs addicts. These were guys that did tons of reading, were super into it, but Burroughs wrote about heroin. All these people, there seems to be a draw for people who have a specific kind of makeup, so to speak. Like, I read more than anybody. I'm a freak about that. And so many of the people I know are like this. You know what I mean? Like, when I said to him on a phone call one day, I said, how many times have you overdosed? He goes, I might have once. Okay, that's not the normal answer you get, because there are two kinds of addicts. You're either going to hear, oh man, they've Narcaned me back 400 times.
I rehearsed that question several times when you asked it, and I was like, yeah, no, I haven't. It just seems like something to say to, I guess, maybe be relatable. You know what I mean?
Well, I've never overdosed.
Yeah.
You know, I did it 30 years. I never overdosed. I shot 3 grams. I decided I was no longer wanting to be on Earth.
Do you think you may have, though? You just may have pushed through it and just by the grace of God, woke up. I mean, you may have never.
I've done way too much. I mean, I've done way too much. But for me, an overdose means someone had to bring you back, right? An overdose means that you did not come back of your own volition, and that never happened to me. And I know people, like, when I asked you the question, I knew what you were going to say, because your drug of choice was fentanyl. And when I start thinking about the amount of time that you were doing it, if you're not one of those people, if you're someone that wants to see how close to death you can get, fentanyl will take you out in a week. And I'm sure you've known those addicts. They're the guys that every time they shoot, they go out. And you're over there trying to bring them back, and they're vomiting all over the place. And then there are addicts that just, over the course of 4 or 5 years of doing it, your tolerance just gets too ridiculous, because you're not ever really pushing it, to the absolute edge of the envelope. You're doing too much dope, but you end up building a tolerance like Keith Richards. And it makes for a more dangerous, in my opinion, that the people that overdose, it's such a frightening thing, right? If you know that your life ended 3 times and somebody brought you back, but if you never overdose, you start going, I'm not like those people, right? For me, it's different. I don't abuse it the same.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen to me, like, it's just. And then you always say that, and you got that person that's like, don't say that. And it's like, I think I'm.
Yeah.
But.
Wait, good God. Tommy Bird went out on gabapentin. I'll tell you something. You're the second person ever that I've ever heard say that. I saw a guy in prison. Eat a garbage bag that was one of those Ziploc bags that they put sandwiches in, and it was puffed out this wide. And he was eating those things, snapping them in half and swallowing them.
It helps, though. It does help. It absolutely does.
Did they give it out in the state joint?
They would, but you have to have a prescription on the outside before.
Gotcha.
And that's how it was. Now, I got also a wicked story, because I can speak on getting methadone in county. There was, as
that to me is bizarre.
Right. So how it happened was, there was a senator's, I wish I came more prepared, but there was a senator's kid that ended up passing away under MCSO, probably under the reign of Joe Pyle. That was another time that I can speak on a lot. I hit the 10 cities. I hit LBJ. I've hit 4th Avenue Max.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Really did the whole tour.
3rd floor, not 4th floor. I didn't get that heavy, but yeah, I'm up there.
Yeah, who cares? If you're in that building, life sucks. I knew a lot of guys from the feds that did time in there. In fact, probably the 2 most famous guys that went through that system, Bruce and Larry Rady. I was cellies with both of those guys at one time.
So during my time, I was going in and out of the system. I would hit certain baseline shooter. I was going through processing when that was going down. When I got out of my 11 days of prison and out before I went back to county, Jody Aries was getting convicted during that time. So there kind of
Jody
gives you a
Arias, yeah.
timeline. Yeah. That was a circus that day.
What a crazy
You know,
case.
I think she kind of did me a solid, honestly, because like nobody that worked there was really paying attention to normal stuff. They were paying attention to that. So like I saw the judge, like he was like, all right, drug court, you're checking in 2 weeks to your probation officer. I said, okay, and left. I didn't make it to
Did you
that.
finish drug court?
No.
No, I've never met anybody that did. Honest to God, I mean, I've seen them because I was in drug court and got thrown out, and I would see the graduations or whatever, but I've never met a person like an opiate addict that got through drug court. For those that don't know, drug court is a beautiful concept. It really is.
You know, it's a
very
miracle.
difficult to get through.
It's a miracle I've graduated IPS, which is intense probation, twice. Now,
Really?
yeah, and what, you know, for you that don't know what that requires is you will see your probation officer once a week. They will see you at your house once a week. So you're going to see a probation officer twice a week. You will have a sheet that you will tell them by the hour of where you're going to go. And at any time they call and check on you and you're not there, bam, that's violation. You know, there was little things that you could figure out, like let's say I needed 4 hours to not be accounted for. What I would do, if any of you guys are ever on probation watching this, is you go to a movie. You get a movie and you keep the ticket stub, because if a surveillance officer or a probation officer is going to be checking on you, there's no way they're going to be able to find you in a movie theater, and they're not going to be going into the movie theater screaming your name. They may call you, but if they call you and you don't answer, well, you're in a movie and you had your phone off. See, these are little things that you think like when you're in that life, you know, it's exhausting.
I got one for you. I got a great question for you. So the old school junkies, when they would get put in county jail, you go in there and they say, what are you on? And you go, heroin, because you think that they're going to give you something that's going to make it easier to get off heroin. And the protocol where I was living at the time was you got Pepto-Bismol, right, for your stomach. You got ibuprofen for your head, and they gave you the drug that's in Dramamine in really small amounts that's supposed to help you sleep. And a Benadryl, if you were really complaining about, so there was nothing. It was absolutely worthless, the detox protocol. So instead, junkies would go in and instead of saying you're on heroin, you'd go, no, I don't take drugs. I don't do any of that stuff. Oh, I got a prescription for Klonopin.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm an alcoholic and I take benzos. Yeah.
Yeah, you tell them that you take mountains of benzos, and then by law, like their biggest fear is that you're going to go into a seizure.
Right.
And they would up the amount of, so day one, they start giving you massive amounts of benzos. And it's a 7-day detox protocol where they step you down. So for that first 7 days of kicking, they basically keep you asleep. You know, you're doing enough benzos, especially if you weren't on them. But tell me you weren't mixing benzos and opiates.
I mean, I had a prescription. I had a crooked doctor at one point that was giving me like 50 a month of 1 milligrams. He never gave me the bars, unfortunately. I always wanted the bars, but he
know what though? Do you have any idea how lucky you are to be alive? Mixing benzos and opiates. Again, if you don't have, if your tolerance for the opiates isn't really strong, because both of those are respiratory depressants. I mean, look at all.
I was always aware. It was always short-lived. I could never maintain that because I was a person that wasn't somebody that could actively participate in society properly under that mixture of things. So if I had a wicked history of doing that, yeah, but it's not something that was very long-term and didn't end well at all. There's been usually the times that I did wake up like incarcerated was due to a benzo of some kind.
And a couple of beers.
No, I don't drink. That's the thing is don't. I mean, yeah, no, that's just not. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't get it.
That's good because it's a third respiratory depressant. And a lot of people who do take benzos drink on them. And if you're mixing the three, I mean, if you look at so many of the big name stars we lost, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman was mixing sleeping pills and benzos.
I know, Whitney Houston and
Whitney Houston.
Oh man, that one was tough.
Yeah, and it's the education is getting better. You know, we're now hearing people in places, you know, younger and younger schools are beginning to talk about this stuff. And I'm not advocating for us to go in and talk to 6-year-olds about, you know, doing dope, but
Right.
Statistically now, like when you were a kid, it was a guarantee that you were going to say the first drug you did was weed, right? That's pretty much what everybody used to say. That was kind of a guarantee. But the statistics now
Ritalin
say
or Adderall as well. Yeah.
Yeah. See, now there's no more the entry level drug, the gateway drug for most people now comes out of mom or dad's medicine chest or friends. Yeah. You don't take all your pain pills and then your kid reads about them online, eats 3 of them, and they're off to the races. And unfortunately, that's kind of a reality of the new drug world that we live in. And we're not doing a lot, unfortunately, to educate better. We're spending a lot of money fighting what's coming across the border. I think that's great, but we really need to start educating people a hell of a lot more, because it's just here's the thing. If you got a kid who's 15, you're going to tell them, hey, don't have sex, be abstinent. However, if you do, make sure that you're taking some kind of protection. A condom would be a great idea. You still preach the abstinence. Right. I did the same thing with dope with my kids. I preached abstinence, but if you're going to end up experimenting, I really hope it's weed, right? I hope that they're not going to experiment with something heavier. And I sort of talked them through what every one of the drugs was. Tommy Bird says, Will, I feel you, man. I've been having a harder time with society lately. I don't do well with people. They're all mostly shallow, selfish idiots. And I'm just going to comment on this, and then I'll let you do it. But I think this is why there's a need for connection channels. I think this is why there's a need for what Will is starting to put up on his the content he's starting to put up, which is actual interactions, not videos, but people that come and get together live and start talking about things, which brings up an interesting point. Give everybody your channel name, because when I started the Love Boat, there were some people that have been here that long, poor people. But when I started the boat, we had to get 1,000 subscribers and we had to get 4,000 hours of watch time before we could do a live. And that really kind of painted us in for, it was like two months or something, 2.5 months that we couldn't go live, which is all I wanted to do. Now it's up to, you have to have 100 subs. There's 66 of you here. When you find out what his channel name is, go over there and sub so that this man can go live, because he has a voice and there's so huge a need for what you're talking about. This needs to happen. The more people that put up channels that talk about things like journaling and talk about things like, get outside and change all of your senses. Look at something different, smell something,
touch some grass. Yeah.
Touch some freaking grass, pet a cat, right? Yeah. Do something that's going to get you out of where you're at. This is the kind of thing that can really help. So the name of your channel is, and most people have probably seen it in the chat, but I'm going to make it easy. When you're done, you're going to leave a comment. Everybody come back and just look at that channel, because he's going to leave a comment right at the top of this, and then just hit subscribe. We absolutely need this, more of it. Deadhead agrees, which I think is awesome.
Thank you, Deadhead.
Look at this. Taylor says, you seem to be a very kind, well-rounded, genuine gentleman. God bless you, Will. I love that. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I love your dog too.
Yeah,
golden retrievers are my favorite. That's for sure.
I had a 135-pound golden retriever at one time named Cosmo. He was an absolute wizard. He used to wear my polo shirts. I'd pull his arms through the front of him, and he would just cruise around in a polo shirt.
Yeah, personality.
Huge dog.
Yeah,
they're the kindest. They remind me of cats. That's why I like, because I'm a cat guy. As most
but I can't not knock my cat love too. Like there has been times where I've had cats really, they're a different animal. They're very in tune differently than a dog is. I'm kind of superstitious in a weird way too. I'm big about maybe having a cat on property because, the Egyptians believe that scares evil spirits away. I can kind of buy into that just a little bit because I feel I'm the type of person that can kind of read the room, very empathic in a way. And it seems like when cats get in the room, it neutralizes things. It just makes things maybe just not so static in a negative vibe. It kind of seems like they lift it a little bit. I got love for cats for sure too. You ever think about talking about Tiger King?
You know what? The Tiger King case is what happened to that case was it was very much diddied. It's like a lot of these cases, when you really start to pull them apart and see what actually happened, the fervor that was going around about this guy, this was a dangerous dude, and I would love to root for him. I really would. But when you start to look at what he did, This is a guy that probably needs to be locked up. Legalize freedom, people. Legalize. Please leave a comment after this as well, and you guys can just go right down to the next one and hit him as well. If people are doing content where they're talking to people and it's live, this is going to save the planet. I'm sorry. If it sounds like I'm making too big a deal of this, then you're not paying attention to everything that's going on in the world, because a lack of connection and a lack of conversation and a lack of contact is literally destroying us from the inside out. And what's crazy is now people that never would have talked about the kind of things we're talking about are talking about human connection. If it wasn't bad enough, there you go. Thank you, Brock Bandy. You're a beast. If it wasn't bad enough, we now find ourselves in a place where a lot of the connection that people have is digital. You know, there are people that have digital girlfriends and boyfriends that they talk to when they come home. Good God, man. Like, I need a girlfriend that tells me everything I do is right. Can you imagine the trouble I'd be in? But that's where we're at. And if we don't start, look at that. And you're quite handsome, apparently. And you got to like that. This kind of connection stuff, I'm not kidding when I say that this is going to save the planet. It really is.
It saved me. And what your message really, the most thing that impacted me the most with it is how you said harm reduction. Like, let's say, okay, you're at 3 grams today. Tomorrow, let's do 2. The next day, let's get down to 1. Let's coast you off 1. Now we can get you on weed. And now if you are just now doing weed and last month you were banging stuff in a Starbucks bathroom, we have made progress. So I think when I'm helping people, I will give them always a realistic view on things. It's going to be always a very not judgmental place, unless, you know, you're out to like try to hurt people. Like, I'm going to have kind of a problem with that. But, you know, time will tell where this will take me. And, you know, this was just a start I needed. You know, you really held your hand out and brought me to the community. If this never took off anywhere from here, you know, I have to say from the bottom of my heart, you really did something for me that you know, nobody else really has, you know. And everybody on the lifeboat, thank you for just hearing a portion of my story. And I hope all of you guys do just get everything.
Well, here's the thing. We are absolutely going to bring you back. Thank you, Legalize. I appreciate that. We're absolutely going to bring you back, because I want people to hear your entire story, but I've been doing this long enough that I knew that nobody cares. Nobody cares how much you know, until they know that who you are and that you care, then they're not really going to, you know, give much of a crap about the story. And to get an idea of who a person is, I would love to do this. We could even do it weekly. This is a pretty good day of the week. But for the next, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, if we come on and then let people hear your entire story, by the next time we come around, you know, there will be hundreds of people that have seen this that will be far more invested in it. And what I'm hoping is that this will be another resource for people, because 2 things happen. In the very beginning, you will be gung-ho in a way that you can't possibly imagine. One of the reasons that I'm excited about you is I talk to people a lot that want to start YouTube channels, and what they say they want to get out of it always makes me want to run away from them. You know, they want to be famous, or they want to make money, or they want to do any of those things. And you go, yeah, you're going to quit in a week. But if you really have a desire to take the things in your life that sucked, like when I started this channel, I just thought someday I'm going to stand in front of God and I'm going to tell him I pissed away the first half of my life. Or I'm going to say, I tried to take all those mistakes and do something with them. Right. And that was the
last half. Exactly. Yeah. The last half. You know, I have something for you, by the way, before we cut off. I have something for you. I feel that it's probably a appropriate gesture. I'm sure you know of one of these, but I went and got you a Chico stick just for the lifeboat. I'm sure you.
Do you have any idea how long it's been since I've had a Chico stick? So if you've never done time, people, those Chico sticks, that's part of the Zuzus and Wham Whams collection.
Yeah, you put these in your coffee. You know, they're definitely a
ice cream
in there. I saw it and I was like, you know what, I need to get a prop for the show. So.
You know, they don't sell them in South America, but if I saw them, I would buy them. That was one of the things I was addicted to. In the Feds, you could buy every 2 weeks, you could buy 20. So I would buy coffee for people, and I would go, just get Chico sticks, because you could buy like 6 bags of coffee. So I'd be like, just get the Chico sticks and I'll trade you out for the coffee. I got a little thick on those. I was pushing 300 pounds at one point from
fat in there. I know.
From Chico sticks. They are absolutely amazing though. But listen to me, we're going to do this, and we're going to continue to do this. People, get this man to 100 as fast as we can so that he can start going live and doing the
I'm at
content.
Sinstar Clothing X. You can also find me as William Elias on Facebook and Sinstar Clothing on Instagram. I'm really at the beginning of all of this. If anybody in Arizona, if you own a screen printing business or anything that can help me build my t-shirt lineup and my clothing lineup, please reach out to me. And yeah, truly, God bless all of you. And thank you for hearing my story. And Tommy, thank you so much.
Oh, they haven't even started to hear your story, but I just wanted people to realize that this is, to me, this is, if there's ever been a legacy of this channel of any way, this is really what I always hoped it would be, is that there were going to be people that went, I really want to do what you were doing in the early days of the lifeboat. And most people do not. It is a difficult thing to do. It's, I'll tell you right now, there are going to be people that you really care about that are going to overdose and die. And it's going to be a rugged thing to get through. And, we're in a battle that we lose more than we win. And that's just part of the deal. And for people that have the desire to get in and do this, that's to me the most important thing that's happening in the world today. I'm not making that bigger than it is. That's no BS. So I'm excited about what you're doing. I'm going to do everything within my power to help make that a reality, because I think that
I know you will.
I think you have a voice. I really do. I think you have a voice, and I think that it's a voice that needs to be heard and for mass subscribe. So we're getting a little closer to him going live. If Relatable Reese gets on this, I lost a bet once. We were starting a channel called Cults and Crims, and I said, I'll bet you we can get that thing monetized within 48 hours, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's so fast. And she goes, I'll bet you we can do it in 8 hours. And I mocked her, and she did it in 5. So maybe I'll call my friend Reese and ask her to mention you on her channel as well, because I believe that this is. I did lose that bet. I do believe that this is the future of sobriety. I'm sorry, I really believe that. Those meetings, unfortunately, especially in the U.S., down here it's completely different. If you go to an NA or an AA meeting in South America, they're not being forced by the courts to show up there. So every person that walks through the door wants to be sober, and that to me is what happens here. And as you said, harm reduction. When I started the lifeboat, if I had believed in harm reduction on day one, I would have saved a lot more people. I would have. Yeah. But I had to watch what harm reduction meant. And there was a guy on my channel that would show up drunk, and he did it for about 2 years. He didn't miss a show, but he was shafazed at every one of them. And he didn't get disrespectful often. A couple of times we had to bounce him out for a day. But I said to him, maybe could you just start, he was doing 32 shots a day. He was doing a fifth. And I go, man, get it down to 29, right? That would be something. And he eventually got off of the stuff and started smoking weed. It was his, what do they call it these days? California sober or something like that.
Yeah.
And the horrible thing is this, there were people shitting all over him. There, people from my channel that were going, well, you're not really sober, man, get out of my chat.
Yeah. Right. You never met anybody that really went and did some heinous stuff necessarily when they were
smoking some weed.
Yeah. Sure, there's cases.
They had one too many joints.
Yeah. There's cases, but I'm for definitely the medical purposes of it. I've seen it firsthand, help people. And, I definitely will always advocate it, but it's always,
I just don't want it under 18. That's my thing. The statistics on weed are not frightening in any way, unless you look at some of the tests that they've done of kids that start smoking
early
or whatever.
Yeah.
And that can actually you lose IQ points. Like it's been there are many studies actually that have documented this. So my thing is as an adult, honest to God,
thanks, Tommy.
I'm never going to say to somebody you're not so. Yeah, Tommy Bird's a good dude. I'm never going to say to somebody you're not sober. That's probably a sentence you should lose from the vocabulary if you want to help anybody. Because the first time someone says, well, you're not really sober, and you think to yourself, I was smoking an 8-ball of crack a day. Now I smoke a joint and I'm somehow not sober. You're going to walk away from that meeting, and the more that you're engaged, the less chance you have of falling back into the life that you're living. But Will, thank you for coming on here. Will you come back next week? Can I expect you to be back here a week from today?
I am here. I'm here at any invitation, always.
We will start with your life story. So come back next week, people. We are going to start at the beginning. We'll probably get up into the prison rips. I don't think we'll get to where he's at today. It's a long story. But please come back next week and we'll do it as a proper story. But I wanted to introduce you to who this man is and why I have such high hopes for what he's getting ready to do. Thank you, Will. I love you, brother. I mean that.
I love you too. Thank you much.
And thanks for being there for me. You know, it's not a one-way street. Now, everybody, just in case you're wondering, that right there is a lazy cat that ought to be in a basket. She just, tell you what, she's not a pro. She used to be. South America's made her lazy. All right, people, I will see you on the next one. Between now and then, get over there and hit that man's subscribe button. I'm Tommy. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Hold on, there you are.